The work and the mission of Human Energy is hugely important right now. And that's because we all know that the world doesn't feel polarized, it is polarized. There's enough talk about war, there's enough talk about geopolitical strife. The conversations around ecology, equity, economy are everywhere.
Human Energy's mission is absolutely critical at this moment in our history. I mean, I hear predictions of how long we have to turn around climate change, to keep our planet habitable, what the threats to democracy are globally and here in the US. I mean, all of that can be particularly scary. I think that's especially what exacerbates the sense of crisis for our young people.
There is a deep sense of loss and of brokenness in this world, whether it's with regard to the environment, the climate change crisis that becomes ever more real for people, the wars that are emerging now newly that weren't anticipated until recently, and now we're sort of seeing that many of the assumptions that we had about life, the certainties, aren't there anymore. We need to have a sense of understanding as human beings. If we don't, that's when we become really anxious. Creating that new understanding, the noosphere, the context in which we live life can be life-saving. So that's why I think this is very critical and can benefit us in this time.
We have technological marvels that kings would have fought over hundreds of years ago. And yet people aren't happy, they're in conflict, they're battling with one another, they feel beset, they think that we're about to run off a cliff. And all of these things are controlled, are shaped by the aggregation of all of the mentality of humans and the cognitive possibilities of all its devices, which is referred to as the Noosphere. This is what has to be healed and nurtured and made functional, or everything else becomes impossible. It's the core issue that needs to be dealt with today. And that's the focus of Human Energy.
We have only just recently discovered the evolution of the universe, the evolution of life, the evolution of humanity. It's very, very recent. That's why many, many people still live within a time frame of 10,000 years, thinking that's the whole thing. But we've discovered this whole vast past story. And at the same time, we're discovering that we have thrown the Earth into a mass extinction. Now, we didn't know about mass extinctions at all. It wasn't until very, very recently that we discovered their reality and that we are causing one. So we have this incredible coming together of amazing knowledge of the universe with the realization that we're tearing it apart. So the Human Energy is crucial to bring that knowledge of our evolution to bear on our political decisions, on our commercial enterprises. We're no longer ignorant of what's taking place, and Human Energy is moving forward with that knowledge.
We want collaboration to solve the challenges of climate change, and just for one example. We also want collaboration to make sure that artificial intelligence is working in directions that are pro-social and pro-human. Human Energy has a role to play there.
So one of the things that an evolutionary worldview makes clear is that how we act depends upon how we think. Our meaning systems, our symbolic systems are truly the cultural equivalent of our genes. And so just as how we act depends on the genes that we have, how we act depends upon the thoughts and the symbols and how they're put together. Therefore, in order to create, action-wise, the noosphere, basically worldwide cooperation, we must be able to think in terms of this science-based worldview.
What we need to do is to help people understand, first of all, the possibilities. That is, we're now at a place where we have the power to make major changes in the world, in which we have the ability to understand the logic of this process, how it works. And if we put our efforts into doing that, we have a much better chance of avoiding some of the great pitfalls that we're headed towards in terms of climate, in terms of conflagrations between nations, in terms of using some of our powerful scientific tools to destroy ourselves. We have those possibilities. To understand, to some extent, how we work collectively, how we think collectively, is one of the great problems. And it's a problem in particular right now because we have, in a sense, accelerated that process. We've made it so easy for ideas to explode around the world rapidly. Misinformation, disinformation, to explode around the world, to take advantage of our own weaknesses, to change global thinking. And that can only lead to trouble, because the only way systems maintain themselves is if the information within them is consistent with their world. If inconsistencies, if disinformation spreads, systems fall apart. We now are beginning to understand how this works. But we've got to keep pace with the technologies that are potentially driving this. To do that, we need to really do the research. We need to understand how this kind of evolutionary process works. That requires people putting their energy, their money, and their efforts into understanding it.